Morning and welcome to AM News Network presents the Morning Report with Rachel Baird and Ed Peruta. We're here every Monday through Thursday from 7 to 7:30 a.m. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning. Today is July 19th, 2017, and Charter Communications had a fiber optic internet outage the other evening, and we were not on yesterday.
Is that what we're going with?
Well, you told everybody we were on strike.
Well, because I got here at 7 o'clock yesterday morning and the internet was working fine. It struck me as one of those situations where...
It must be tough driving the 7 miles from your house to the studio.
You know, he's like Donald Trump. Whenever you say something to him, he's got to come back. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I would never mean that in a bad way. But it reminded me of a snowstorm where they report it's going to snow the next day and all the kids get excited because they think they're going to have the day off, but then it doesn't snow at all.
I remember a day it was snowing and you wished that it was a blizzard so you didn't have to drive all the way to
Massachusetts for court. But you used your time wisely yesterday and you really dove into this internal affairs report out of Hartford about the June 4th Flatbush incident. And the one thing that struck us on Saturday night and kind of lit us up was Officer Barone's failure to call in a traffic stop, and he really didn't have a good excuse for it.
Do you have your?
If there is an excuse.
Do you have your computer here?
I do.
Can you print out the email I sent you yesterday? I don't have it with me.
Okay. But talk a little bit about what you found.
It's the beginning of the FOI request. I started to think about what is disclosed in the internal affairs report of June 4th, 2016.
It's like it goes for just the surface and the obvious, but if you think about it, there's so much going on underneath. For example, when Officer Barone said he didn't call in that traffic stop, and you and I both know that for every traffic stop you make, there are federal rules that states have to comply with.
While you're doing that, let me read this.
Okay.
Okay. Evidently, racial profiling in traffic stops was an issue at the federal and state level. They used to have in Barkhamsted, they called it the Barkhamsted Express, that minorities from Hartford going out to the reservoir to swim were being stopped on Route 44. And racial profiling was very high profile at one time. So the state of Connecticut formed a committee, went and came up with some policies, which became a public act, which became the law. So I'm going to read.
And I have a feeling that compliance with that federal law, that federal funds are contingent on compliance with that federal law.
And state funding.
Okay.
To the local community.
Okay, I'll let you go.
Now, understand that I think that this is prevalent throughout the country, not just Hartford or Connecticut or New England or the east of the Mississippi or west of the Mississippi. I think it's prevalent throughout because...
And you have to ask yourself, when the IA investigator, Sergeant O'Brien, was asking Barone about this situation, and they learned that Barone had not called the traffic stop in, why didn't they say to him, have you done this before? Do any other officers do it? Were you taught to do this? Is it muscle memory?
You start looking, and then you can print.
Well, I can't, but I'm going to send to Master Control, and can he print?
If you send it to,
he's given me a look. You know what?
Okay.
You can read it off here. Why can't you just read it off here?
I can.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So, in law enforcement, there is very often a domino effect, which takes place in a traffic stop. I stop an individual for going through a red light. I approach and stand next to the driver's door with the window open. I smell marijuana. Or I see drugs in the car. Or I see a firearm in the car. Or I see something. Let's say I see a pile of boxes from Walmart. And it's then realized that the person is involved in a shoplifting ring. And then the shoplifting ring and the items in the car, the shoplifter and the items in the car leads to a person who has a group of people shoplifting, dropping stuff off, and then he's selling the stuff on eBay. And this is a true story. They just found somebody like this. But there's a domino effect. But there's also the effect of, if I stop a car, for whatever reason, I can start to make arrests. Say 1 in 10 cars that I stop leads to a valid arrest. I make 100 stops a day. 10% is 10. I make 10 arrests a day. The police department rewards me for being a good officer by promoting me.
But on the other hand, if you reported all 100 stops, they'd say, what's going on with you?
Why are you stopping 100 cars? What's going on out there? Okay. Do you have anything else to do? All right. Now, there is a report out there. It's 400 and something pages long.
Racial Profiling Prohibition Project, Traffic Stop Data Report, October 1st, 2013 through May 31st, 2014.
Okay, now, that's not the email of my FOI request.
Okay.
All right.
It's written by James Faziano, Project Manager, and Ken Barone, the Policy and Research.
Barone?
Okay.
Okay. Forward. Connecticut General Statute Section 54-1 small m, also known as the Alvin W. Penn Racial Profiling Prohibition Act.
I remember that.
Requires the submission of an annual report to the Governor and General Assembly reviewing the prevalence and disposition of traffic stops and complaints in Connecticut. This report covers the period from October 1st, 2013 through May 31st, 2014. As such, it provides the first statewide reporting of traffic stop data in more than 10 years. It is important to note that this partial year data, although informative, does not provide a complete picture of agency performance. That cannot be any more important than after Barone's statements to Internal Affairs.
Did you see who's involved in this racial profiling prohibition project?
There's a list of names.
A lot of familiar names. I mean, the commissioner of the Department of Public Emergency Services, our good friend Mike Lawler.
Find my FOI
I'm sure
request.
Mike Lawler would want to be aware of this.
A supplemental report will be prepared for January 1st, 2015. That will improve upon this product in several important ways.
You're not going to read that whole thing.
First, it will summarize a full year of traffic stop data, which will provide more meaningful information that can be gleaned from this report. Second, the supplemental report will include a complete analysis of the traffic stop data, incorporating several analytical measures. And it goes on to say, Connecticut's requirement for police agencies to collect and report traffic stop information is the most extensive of its kind anywhere in the country. The data collected and analyzed, as well as the wide range of agencies required to report information, is extensive. The first report includes data on more than 360,000 traffic stops conducted during the 8 months since the new requirements were implemented.
Where does that come from? This report?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's the forward to that report.
I got it. I thought some of it looked familiar.
And then I'm going to go down. It says, readers are likely to find the data in this report both interesting and thought-provoking, but it should not be considered dispositive of the presence or absence of profiling in a particular jurisdiction. Rather, it should be approached with caution. An apparent disparity in a town data with respect to certain segments of the population might be indicative of profiling behavior, or it might not. The data is presented in simplified ways that allow users to begin to understand traffic stop patterns in several different ways, but the level of analysis provided in this report is somewhat limited. The goal of this report, and more significantly, the supplemental report to be completed by the end of the year, is to present the traffic stop data in an organized way that sets the stage for a continuing process. And I'm not going to read any more of that. I want you to do me. I want you to do me a favor.
Yeah, find that email.
No, word search that document if it's searchable.
It is
for Wethersfield.
Okay.
Is it in there?
Well, it comes up on the City Town Index. Do you want me to look where it's mentioned more specifically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Troop agent. Oh, here's the statistics for Wethersfield.
Okay.
I'm sure that's what you're looking for. Let me enlarge it and move it closer to you, okay?
Okay, now.
There you go.
For those of you who don't know, state population, city, town, estimated driving population, traffic stops. Okay. If my memory serves me correctly, I am friends with Chief James Citrian of the Wethersfield Police Department. And Jimmy Citrian was talking to me one day about some type of report or statistic which implied that his department was racially profiling people. I'm wondering if it is this report that he was referring to. And I'm going to call him today and I'm going to ask him. Because...
I mean, have they done any since 2014?
Don't know.
We don't know.
There was supposed to be a supplemental report
by the end of that year.
In 50. Okay? Now...
and you don't have a mouse for that. I know it's hard for you.
I know. So, Wethersfield is in there. The question I would have is, Jimmy, when we talked about the town, because we said, because Wethersfield is on the southern border of Hartford, people drive down the Silestine Highway to get to the Citgo gas station to fill up their cars, and Walmart, which is down on the Rocky Hill, Wethersfield town line at exit 24 on I-91. And when you have people from an urban area in predominantly minority neighborhoods driving on a main thoroughfare through your town, where the town's makeup of minority, you may not have that many minorities that live in town, but you have an extraordinary amount of minorities that drive through or into your town.
I get it.
And Jimmy and I said, you really can't look at our population to arrive at why we stop so many Hispanics, blacks, or minorities. Because of that factor of the Silestine Highway driving through town. Now, we now know that Officer Steve Barone of the Hartford Police Department claimed to suffer memory. What was it? What did he call it?
Muscle memory.
Muscle memory to shut off his traffic camera.
Like, you're driving up to a scene, there's a lot of police officers there, adrenaline's pumping, you're at the end of a motor vehicle chase, and your muscle memory tells you, turn off the cruiser camera.
The shooting incident in Minneapolis where the Australian woman was shot by the Minneapolis police officer, they're saying now that these officers were wearing body cams.
Yep.
And they did not have them on responding to I want to say a breaking and entering call, a criminal call, a call for a crime being in progress. Now, this thing about muscle memory. Officer Barone, and this is how it came to light in the report, he was the initial officer who attempted to stop the car that eventually caused the ruckus on the Hartford streets and ended up being stopped on Flatbush Avenue in West Hartford, that was captured on video, that showed people kicking the occupants, including the driver and a passenger. Now, Officer Barone shut, because I'm telling you that the video recorder, if not going all of the time, is activated definitely by lights and siren.
Right.
You push your lights, you push your siren, it already has 30 seconds in the can. It takes the 30 seconds that's in memory and it starts to record and document the traffic stop. He suffers muscle memory frequently enough to have muscle memory. And the only time I had ever heard about muscle memory was in shooting firearms. That if you go to the range enough times, frequently, all the time, you draw your firearm, you go out, your muscles go to a certain point, you aim, you fire, it goes up, it comes down to the same place, and you do this repetitively, time after time after time after time. Eventually, your body and your muscles have muscle memory, and when you draw, it does the exact same thing and puts you in the bullseye. Muscle memory. How many times has Officer Barone shut down his dash cam? Because now think of it a little bit further.
And in future arrests where his dash cam does not record the incident, the defense attorney needs to know.
Did he shut it off?
The defense attorney needs to know, does he have a history of shutting off his cruiser camera, and why?
Exactly.
Muscle memory.
The
prosecutor has an obligation to tell that to every defense attorney where Barone is involved in an arrest.
Or a traffic stop.
Or a traffic stop.
Now, but let me go a step further. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Tyszkka was in here, and he explained, and I kind of knew it, that the camera is always going. It's always going. But it only records, say, 90 seconds and only keeps 30 seconds when the camera is activated by the light switches.
You have to listen to the...
Let me finish this first.
Okay.
When an officer shuts down the the dash cam, doesn't that imply that he activated it with either the lights or the siren and then shut it down?
I don't know enough about it.
We don't know enough about it.
Right.
But in order to shut it down means that it was on. And you shut it down to turn it off. And if it's always recording, can he shut it down completely that there's no video whatsoever? Or does it still have that 30 seconds memory and it overwrites itself and it's gone? Can a technician look at a dash cam system and tell how many times it's been shut down in a day? Isn't that exculpatory information to the defense? In other words, how many times did you shut your camera off on the day you stopped my client? Where's the video?
Okay.
Go ahead, read.
Well, Master Control sent me an email about muscle memory, which led me to look muscle memory up on Wikipedia. I don't know how we couldn't have done this before. Why didn't we think of that first?
It doesn't talk about masturbation or anything, does it?
Well, no.
Okay.
Muscle memory has been used synonymously with motor learning, which is a form of procedural memory that involves consolidating a specific motor task into memory through repetition.
Yeah.
When a movement is repeated over time, a long-term muscle memory is created to that task, eventually allowing it to be performed without conscious effort.
Right.
Does it so much, doesn't even think about it. Driving up to a scene, it may become a controversial point. We want to control the narrative. We don't want anybody, questioning what we want to testify to later to fill in any gaps, to protect ourselves. Turn off the camera. This process decreases the need for attention and creates maximum efficiency within the motor and memory systems. Examples of muscle memory are found in many everyday activities that become automatic and improve with practice, such as riding a bicycle, typing on a keyboard, typing in a pen, playing a musical instrument, martial arts, dancing, or, in the case of Officer Barone, turning off the dash cam.
I believe that the domino effect was in play but was not recognized or was not acted upon by the Hartford Internal Affairs Unit. Because, like you said before the show, why didn't someone ask Officer Barone? And how often does your muscle memory cause you to shut your dash cam down? How many times have you done it in the past? And I'm willing to bet you that when they put the dash cams in the car, there is in the Hartford Police Department A&O manual a section on traffic stops and dash cam activation, deactivation, and the responsibility of the officer to record the traffic stop. Because somebody like Chief Ravella, Mayor Bronin...
I mean, they have ComStat, they have those meetings where each commander
gets
up and,
let's go to the next ComStat meeting and ask them.
I mean, everything looks like television at those ComStat meetings. Commander, what's going on in your section of the city? Commander, how about you? And everything's all whatever. Is anybody...
And there's always somebody in the audience going, they're doing a great job.
Who happens, I think, to be on the Civilian Review Board now, but that's a whole,
right.
That's a whole other issue.
But what I'm saying is this, is that the dominoes were there. They saw the first domino in the line. It was identified as a domino. It was identified as a violation of department policy or procedure. I'm willing to bet you that somewhere shutting off a dash cam in a traffic stop prior to stopping or whatever, shutting it down, is a violation of HPD policy. And you know something? If it was a different time of day, call up HPD and get Deputy Chief Foley on the phone and ask him, is there a department policy regarding shutting down dash cams during motor vehicle stops, prior to or during motor vehicle stops? Is there a department policy? If there is, I'll be right in to pick it up.
So what's the next step? You're following an FOI.
I'm going to file an FOI request. I've forwarded it to you because I want you to go over it. Because what happened was I was asking for things like UARs, what are the names of the people that he arrested, so I can check with the court docket, and then I can find out who the lawyers were, so I can call the lawyers to say, did anybody bother to tell you that Officer Brown has an issue? You know, in a 68-page internal affairs
But if we're going to do it, we might as well ask about all 5 officers.
Well, what happened was I
haven't
started
even gotten to them yet.
I started to type my FOI request, and then all of a sudden this shutting off the dash cam, and I go, "Now, what do you ask for there?" And I started to look, saying there must be a law someplace, and I found this report, and it referenced 54-1 small m, and I read 54-1 small m, and I said, "Holy shit!" I said, because this is the way I look at it. Officer Barone is guilty of falsifying the public record. The public record is supposed to show and document all traffic stops with various information to compile data.
Well, let's not forget that he did have a justification, which Matt Tyszkka said was possibly a valid justification. And the justification was that there was a lot of traffic signal talk on the radio that night. There was a lot of talk on the radio. Is there...
He didn't call it in. What he didn't do was turn his dash cam on, and he shut it off.
Oh, well, that
has nothing to do with talking on the radio when you say off.
Okay, well, let's... But when you talk about federal and state funding, aren't you talking about having to memorialize each traffic stop, right? That's the Alvin Penn law. You have to memorialize each traffic stop, the race, the gender, which, by the way, just looking at these statistics,
location, race, gender, yes.
Yeah, yeah, you have to record all that. And when you don't, doesn't that jeopardize? Well, it violates the law and jeopardizes funding. Is there an exception to reporting traffic stops when the radio activity is extremely busy? When, are there exceptions to when you have to report the traffic stops? That's the question.
When we asked them under oath why their names did not appear in the heartbeat system as being at Park Street, the answer they gave was, well, the dispatchers were busy and they may have missed my radio call saying that I was en route or that I arrived.
And then when we asked them about their arrival and departure times as indicated in the heartbeat records, they said, well, those times may not be accurate because I may have arrived at a certain time, but busy, whatever, I didn't call it until a certain time. So basically what they're saying is their records are inaccurate because they're too busy to call in the proper times, and the dispatchers are too busy to even put down who may or may not be there. So how can you rely on any of their records?
We'll continue this tomorrow.
Okay. Kryschenko's going to join us. It's another Thursday with Kryschenko.
Well, no, we won't continue it tomorrow, but Saturday between 2 and 4, I think this is going to be a huge topic.
Okay, nice job on the revision on the set, Ed. Everybody have a great Wednesday. Bye.